Welcome into DRF Daily, DRF Sportsbooks betting live stream coming at you every Monday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Whenever there's football on, we are on, and we have a jam-packed episode of DRF Daily today, breaking down tonight's Thursday night football action, getting Week 7 started with the Saints going to Arizona to take on the Cardinals. Cardinals 2.5-point favorites there tonight, and it's going to be a fantastic game. New Orleans comes in after a couple of solid wins, and they're 2.5-point dogs. The Saints come in 2-4. They lost last week against the Cincinnati Bengals. They held a lead for the entirety of the game. Bengals came back late in the Superdome and pulled out that win. It's been an up and down season for the Saints so far this season. Opened it up with a win against the Falcons, lost three in a row, picked up a win against the Seahawks thanks to some fantastic play by Taysom Hill, and now they take on another NFC West opponent that, by transitive property, they're better than. I mean, the Saints beat the Seahawks, Seahawks beat the Cardinals, so, by the transitive NFL property that we all know is lab-tested, scientifically proven, technically the Saints are the better team in this one. And like I said, Cardinals 2.5-point favorites today. We're getting all of this information from drf.com/sports. It's the sports equinox. Check out all the data we have for free. Every single game tonight is free. But the Cardinals are 2.5-point favorites. They opened as 2-point favorites. The line dropped down to 1.5 at one point and now sits nicely at 2.5 as 64% of the public are on the Cardinals to cover this game. It's quite interesting to me that such a large portion of the public is on the Cardinals in this one. The Cardinals have shown us nothing so far this season. One of the worst offenses. They just lost their number one receiver, Marquise Brown, albeit they did just add DeAndre Hopkins and Robbie Anderson. DeAndre Hopkins comes back from his suspension. But I'm not sure if DeAndre Hopkins can provide enough oomph in this offense that they need. They look lethargic. They look anemic. They look terrible. I mean, against the Seahawks, they couldn't even muster one offensive touchdown. Granted, they left a few points on the board as they didn't trust their field goal kicker, so they went for it on fourth down and didn't convert. But I mean, still, you couldn't score on one of the worst defenses in the NFL, and you expect me to take you as 2.5-point favorites against a Saints team that is 2-4, but that record is a little bit deceiving. I mean, they held a lead for 58 minutes against the Bengals. They took down the Seahawks, which I know isn't the best team, but they're 3-3 tied for the first in NFC West. You look at their schedule, they lost by 3 to the Vikings. They lost to the Panthers, which is a weird one. They lost by 8 to the Panthers. They lost by 10 to the Bucks. I mean, this isn't necessarily a bad team. They beat the Falcons, who's showing us that they're not terrible either. So it's very surprising me that 64% of the public is on the Cardinals at -2.5. New Orleans is the better offense in this one, too. Even with Andy Dalton, who's going to get the start tonight, I believe Jameis Winston is out again. Saints average, and I will say, whether it's Andy Dalton, Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill, whoever's behind center, whoever's taking the snap tonight, I don't really care. It doesn't change my perception of what this Saints offense is and what this Saints team is. The Saints average 6.1 yards per play on the season and 24 points per game. Arizona, with supposedly the wonder kid of, Kyler Murray, they average just 5 yards per play and 19 points per game. I was told Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury were this dynamic duo. Why else would Steve Keim, Cliff Kingsbury, and Kyler Murray all get massive extensions over this offseason? This isn't a good team. The Cardinals are not good. They look bad. Their offense is lackluster. Kyler Murray is underwhelming. I mean, Kyler Murray is not doing what he needs to do in order for this team to win. He was an MVP candidate last year, and now this season, just 227 yards per game with 5.3 yards per attempt or per completion. So nothing too crazy. He's thrown an interception on the year, and he's not looking solid. He also fumbled last game, a fumble and an interception, 2 turnovers to Kyler Murray's name last week, both recovered by Tariq Woolen, and we'll talk more about him as we get closer to Sunday in the NFL action. But the Saints should have every opportunity in this game to win, and that's why I'm on the Saints' money line in this one. I don't think the Cardinals' defense is good enough to slow down Alvin Kamara, Mike Thomas, and the whole bevy of offensive weapons, even Taysom Hill. And I don't think the Cardinals have the star power even with DeAndre Hopkins back, even with trading for Robbie Anderson, enough to keep up with this team. They only average 19 points per game. They have a negative 4.7 point differential, and they're coming off a week against the Seahawks where they didn't score an offensive touchdown, and it's a short week, so you can't expect too much changing for the Cardinals with just 4 days to prepare. It's also worth noting that Cliff Kingsbury, who was a ex-fired football coach who somehow failed his way into the NFL, is 3-13 as a home favorite in his career as the coach of the Cardinals. 3-13 as a home favorite. You're supposed to take care of business at home. He's 3-13 against the spread, whereas the Saints are 8-1 against the spread in road games against teams that allow more than 5.65 yards per play. The Cardinals allow 5.8 yards per play, and this is a New Orleans offense that averages 6.1 yards per play. New Orleans is also 75-44 plus 26 units when they're coming off of a loss against the spread after they didn't cover. So take all that as you will, and that's why I'm on the Saints money line this. I don't think they cover. I think they win outright, whether it's Andy Dalton, whether it's Jameis Winston, whether it's Taysom Hill, whether it's me. Maybe I'm just way too low on the Cardinals in this game. But, I mean, New Orleans is 9-5 against the spread against Arizona since 1992. 9-5 straight up. And they're 4-4 against the spread and straight up down in Arizona. I think they continue that solid play. Our power line thinks Arizona -2 is the play, but our two estimates like the Saints to win this game. I mean, look, estimate number 1 likes the Saints to win this one 24-17, and estimate number 2 likes the Saints to win 22-19. I'm on New Orleans winning this one 24-17. New Orleans has a really solid offense and an even better defense, and I think that's going to be the key. And that's why when we go into our player props now, we're on Kyler Murray under 245.5 pass yards. On the season, just him, he averages 243 pass yards a game. So on average, he's averaging under the total here tonight. And not only that, he's only gone over this in 50% of the games. I know that sounds like a large number, but I mean, against the Seahawks, he couldn't go over it. Against some bad defenses where he should be padding his stats, he hasn't been able to go over it. And this is a good defense. This is a defense that allows only 222 pass yards per game. He's without Marquise Brown. Yes, I know they add DeAndre Hopkins, but it is his first game back, and they're going to force him the ball a lot. But I don't see anyone else. And I say they're without Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, because who's number 2 in that wide receiving core? Is it Robbie Anderson? Is it Greg Dortch? Like, there's not a lot of guys there. And I think DeAndre Hopkins will get his, but I don't think there'll be enough to go around for Kyler Murray to go over 245.5 pass yards. I mean, this New Orleans defense is good. They might even force a turnover or two out of Kyler Murray because he's not looked like himself so far this season. And DeAndre Hopkins, over under 62.5 receiving yards. You know, I'm going to go over. We just talked about it. I mean, they're without Marquise Brown. Greg Dortch is their next leading wide receiver. Zach Ertz is technically their second leading receiver this season with 299 yards. Marquise Brown has over 400. Marquise Brown's gone. He's done for season. DeAndre Hopkins is going to get his opportunities. He's probably going to be targeted double digits, and he's going to have his opportunities to get 62.5 receiving yards. I don't see an opportunity for DeAndre Hopkins to go under this. I think DeAndre Hopkins, it's a lock to go over 62.5 pass yards. I just believe he's going to get his opportunities. He's going to get forced the ball. Greg Dortch, like I said, is the next leading wide receiver, and I don't see Greg Dortch stealing any targets from him. I don't see Robbie Anderson. Sounds good on paper, but he hasn't been able to perform in Carolina the last few years. So give me DeAndre Hopkins over 62.5 receiving yards. And before we wrap up with our last player prop of the day, DRF Cash Grab wants to let you guys know how you can make free money and boost your bankroll.
Introducing the DRF Cash Grab app, the super easy, free-to-play sports predictor game from a name you know and trust, the Daily Racing Form. Use your sports knowledge to predict the winners, and you could score thousands of dollars in cash prizes. Pro football, college football, pro basketball, college basketball, hockey, soccer, boxing, baseball, and more. Compete against others for a spot on the monthly leaderboard. Download the DRF Cash Grab app and play today.
And last but certainly not least, Alvin Kamara's carries This is an interesting prop, not one I normally target. He is set at 15.5 total rushing attempts. I'm going to go under 15.5 rushing attempts, 15.5 carries tonight, because I believe they're going to get him the ball. He'll get his touches. He'll get overall touches. But that just might be screen passes in the backfield. It might be wheel routes. It might be coming out of the backfield. Because this Cardinals defense, while I've been ragging on Arizona for this entire show, they don't perform terribly against the run. I mean, they average just allowing 104 rush yards per game. That's 4.3 yards per attempt. I mean, their secondary leaves a lot to be desired, nearly allowing 7 yards per completion. So that's why I think the Saints' attack will be more through the air. They'll be getting Alvin Kamara his touches through the air. They might not be giving it to him 16 times rushing attempts. He's coming off of 19 attempts. Last game, I believe it was 23 or 26 attempts the week before. So he's had his touches. But tonight against a Cardinals defense that is fairly stout against the run, they might be okay with just getting him the ball out of the backfield and not handing him the ball and letting him run into a just wall of humans and picking up 3-4 yards. They'd rather get him on the swing pass out into open space and allow him pick up 10 and let him do his magic. So Alvin Kamara will get his. Alvin Kamara will get his opportunities tonight. Just will it be through a traditional run game? Probably not. And that's why I'm on Alvin Kamara under 15.5 total rushing attempts, 15.5 carries. So that's it for today's episode of DRF Daily. Before we get up on out of here, as always, our best bets for tonight off of Monday Night Football. We had a 2-2 record. Russell Wilson, man, was he on pace to break his over pass yards. I think he was on pace for over 400 yards passing after that first quarter. But then after putting up like 110 yards in the first quarter, he threw for just 70 some odd yards in the second, third, and fourth quarter all combined. And he didn't hit the over. So that's always fun. Saints plus 2.5 tonight against the Cardinals. Take out Saints plus 2.5. We're going Saints money line. Saints money line at plus 120. The Saints are winning this game, folks. The Cardinals aren't good. The Cardinals are 2-4. The Saints are 2-4. This isn't a must-win game for either side. But if they want to keep pace in the wild card and not have to, have some must-wins early on in the season, this is a halfway must-win. Give me the Saints. They're the better team, regardless of who's at quarterback. They have the better defense. They have the better offense. They have the better every single thing, and the Cardinals do not perform well under Cliff Kingsbury as home favorites. Kyler Murray under pass yards, 245.5 pass yards. I said 0.4, but that you get the point. Kyler Murray under 245.5 pass yards. I don't think he'll be able to move the ball all that well against a New Orleans defense that allows just 222 pass yards per game. He also averages less than 245.5 pass yards each game this season, and you're telling me against one of the better units, he's going to outperform his season average. I just don't believe it. Under pass yards. DeAndre Hopkins, though, this might seem a little counterintuitive, over 62.5 receiving yards. I think Kyler Murray will get his, and DeAndre Hopkins will get his when they're pairing up with each other. The only question is, and was a big reason I'm on the under for Kyler Murray, I don't think Kyler Murray can get his and get yards with any other receiver because they're without Marquise Brown. DeAndre Hopkins will get double-digit targets tonight. DeAndre Hopkins will get opportunities to get the ball. And then from there, what? They have Robbie Anderson and Greg Dortch and Zach Ertz. That's not a murderer's row of receiving yards. So DeAndre Hopkins will have to have a lot of receiving yards if the Cardinals want to keep this one close. Alvin Kamara, we just broke it down. Under 15.5 carries. Under 15.5 total rushing attempts. He'll get his, but the Saints, they're not a stupid team. This is a Cardinals defense that is pretty good against the run, allowing just 104 rush yards per game. So they're not going to keep handing it to him, having him run into a wall of humans and for 3-4 yards each time. Instead, they're going to get him on swing passes, get him on screens, get him out in space on the outside. He'll get his touches, but they won't come by way of carries. So that's the breakdown for today's Thursday Night Football. It's the sports equinox. We can't wait for a fantastic day of sports action. We're hoping to get you all set with DRF Sports Pro data. You can find all of the data we used over on drf.com/sports. Every single game tonight for the Sports Equinox is free. So go check that out. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, everywhere at DRF Sportsbook. And if you're in Iowa, bet all these lines with DRF Sportsbook, Iowa's only local sportsbook.